to this video training clip on how to be a PCC Secretary. The role of the PCC Secretary is one of the leading officers of the PCC, so it's important that it's done well. You're also a conduit of communication between the diocesan office, the bishop and the PCC itself. But the bit you're probably most expecting is the role of record keeper. Let's look at that in some detail now. So let's think about how you keep records in relation to the PCC meeting. First, you'll need to produce the agenda, and this will be done in collaboration with your chair, who may or may not be a cleric, church wardens and any other member of the PCC. During the meeting, you'll take minutes. We'll have a look in a moment at how much detail you need to keep, and at the end of the meeting, you will distribute those minutes. You might want to get somebody to look over the minutes before you do that, probably the chair, get them agreed that what you've got is what happened, and then distribute them to every member of the PCC. At the next PCC meeting, you'll revisit those minutes and everyone needs to agree that they're a true and correct copy, and then you ask the chair to sign them off as such. They should then be filed away. Now, PCC minutes are a legal document, so they're kept in perpetuity. Once your minutes are filed away and the file is full, you need to lodge it with your local record office, and your local authority will help you if you don't know where that is. Just on a note, if you're using a loose leaf binder to keep your minutes, that's perfectly acceptable, but so that no one can remove a page without it being noticeable, it will be really good if you number the bottom of the pages and if you ask the chair to initial each page. That way anyone looking at them in 10, 20, 100 years' time will see that they've got the full record. Let's have a look at how much detail should be in your minutes. So, keeping PCC minutes. Why do we need to do that? Well, we all know that memories can be unreliable. So a brief but accurate record of the meeting is really important, not just for the people who were there, but for those who weren't able to get there. It'll keep them informed about what happened. And here's my top tip to you as PCC Secretary. Don't leave it too long to do your minutes, because your memory will be just as unreliable as everyone else's, and sometimes if you leave it too long, your notes just won't make any sense. So do them as quickly as you can after the meeting. As I've already said, these are a legal document and you may need to provide copies of the minutes for things like a faculty application or a funding bid. And lastly, but by no means least, the Constitution of the Church in Wales requires you to keep proper minutes. When you're typing up your minutes, be realistic about how much people will read. I think for a 2-hour meeting, it's unlikely you'll need more than 4 sides of A4, and you may not even need that much. So what should you be recording? Who's agreed to do what, when they've agreed to do it by. If there's a contentious issue, you might want to capture the mood of the meeting with phrases such as there was broad agreement for, or there was a lot of dissent about. Otherwise, one of my favourite phrases that I use is there was a wide-ranging discussion, because that enables you to just not have to take details of exactly who said what about what. And unless somebody specifically asks you to take note of what they've said in the minutes, then it's perfectly acceptable for you to capture that using that phrase. So, it's time for the PCC meeting. What do you need to take with you? Copies of the agenda, always useful to have some spares even if you sent them out prior to the meeting, which you should have, by the way. An attendance sheet for everyone to sign, a copy of the previous minutes and the minutes file, so that if somebody asks what happened last year or last time, you can look it up, and of course a pad and paper to take your minutes, unless you prefer to work on a tablet or a laptop. So every year we have an annual Vestry meeting. This is the equivalent of our AGM. It must happen no later than the 30th of April, and the congregation and the parish must have at least 2 weeks' notice of the date. You can do that by simply putting a notice in the church porch or on the church door. You will obviously take minutes during that annual vestry meeting, but you're also required to handle some paperwork. People will need to see the minutes of last year so that they can look back and agree them. The annual report and accounts will be presented. You may have a role to play in the annual report. That's usually compiled by the cleric, the lay chair, the church wardens and yourself, and that's just the shop window. That's where you tell everyone who you are and what you do, and the accounts will be prepared by the treasurer. You may have to gather in reports from diocesan conference and either your mission area or deanery conference representative as well. Elections may take place and you may be required to do some paperwork concerning that, but that varies depending on the size of your PCC. That would be elections for people like church wardens, treasurer, sides people and so on. At that point, you may wish to ask the PCC members who've just been elected to sign a PCC declaration. You can do it either at the annual vestry meeting or at the first PCC meeting, and there's a bilingual copy of that on the diocesan website. You're a conduit for communication. What does that mean in practice? You may receive correspondence from the bishop or the diocesan team written to you as PCC Secretary. This needs to go to the PCC meeting, generally under the agenda item correspondence received. You might find it useful to subscribe to STAR, the St Asaph Roundup. This is a weekly email newsletter which we send out every Thursday, and it contains a whole host of information. Apart from being of use to you personally, there may be things on there that you would like to take to the PCC meeting for their attention. From time to time, we will write to you and ask for information. This might be about who's been elected, for example, to the diocesan conference or the mission area conference. Every year, we will write to you with 4 of these reports. There's a blue one for the treasurer, there's a green one for the church wardens, and you may be asked to fill this one in. It's about what's in your parish registers, which are kept in the church safe. The other one we'll ask you to complete is this one, which tells us who holds office in your PCC. It's vital that we have up-to-date information so that we can write to the correct person when we need to. You may be asked to keep a parish diary if you're a busy church with lots of events going on. I hope you can see that as a conduit for communication, your role is vital. If you'd like further information on how to effectively run a parish, you could search for Church in Wales Parochial Administration Handbook, which has all the information you need. In a similar way, you can search for Church in Wales Constitution if you really want to get into the detail. If you'd like to sign up for STAR, please contact Sean Connolly at churchinwales.org.uk. Finally, I would like to thank you. Thank you for giving your time, your skills, your energy to being the PCC Secretary. And thank you for joining us in this Training Together session.